Update. Thinking if I, 36 male, should leave my wife, 36 female, because she openly resents our son, 7. Original story. Neither of us were sure about having kids. We were married 5 years before finding out she was pregnant. Both nervous as hell, but in the end, she wanted to try having the baby, and I agreed. It was hard at first. Parenthood is in general, but I love my son. He's wonderful, smart, energetic, and warms my heart. My wife, for the most part, was great with him, but occasionally we both would get burned out and find some time to have date nights or individual free time. Over a year ago before lockdown, my wife started becoming very irritated over anything he'd do. Accidentally spill a little apple juice on the counter? She'd yell at him like if he'd just destroyed a family heirloom. It was something that happened every now and then, but we'd talk about it, and she would apologize to him. Pandemic was really rough. We both had our jobs, just were working from home and our son wasn't in school. At first, I thought the frustration came from being cooped up at home and not being able to go out. But my son's been going to school again for months, and we're all back to going out. Yet, things haven't improved. Finally had to sit down with my wife, because no matter what mood she's in, she could be happy and smiling. But when my son comes in, her mood shifts, and I notice it more now. My wife told me that for the longest time, she's resented having our son. Motherhood isn't what she thought it was going to be, and missed it only being the two of us. She didn't expect her life to be this way with a child, and she regrets having him at all. It was a hard conversation to have, but one we really needed to. I've talked to her about getting therapy, individual, couples, or both, whatever it takes. She's refused because she claims she doesn't need help. We have tried going on more date nights, being a couple if she feels like we're not getting enough of that. Having her spend some more one-on-one time with him, which she doesn't want to do. It doesn't matter. As soon as we get home and in our son's presence, she's more serious. I asked her once, does she love him? And my wife says that she does, just doesn't like him. That was painful. I want to work on this with her and get therapy, but she doesn't want to. What's pushing me to want to leave is because my son is starting to pick up on this. No 7-year-old kid should be asking why mom's always mad at him. I love my wife, but I'm scared of him growing up with someone who doesn't like him. Is this really it? Is the next best thing to leave, or is there any way to get her to understand I can't have our son living like this? Now for the top advice before reading the update. I grew up with a mother who loved me but didn't like me. She messed me up so hardcore. I'd let your wife know that if she isn't in therapy and making progress immediately, you'll be all done. Your kiddo comes first. I'm very sorry about your mother. That's exactly what I want to avoid with my son. He doesn't deserve any of this. I really hope another talk, this time with the mention of divorce if nothing improves, will get her to understand how serious I am this time. I also grew up with this. It also prompted me to spend most of my 20s in horrible relationships. And I also don't speak to the parent who loved me but didn't like me now, and haven't in years. You see, it seemed okay for me to be in relationships with partners who treated me with contempt, disgust, even sadism, because they also said they loved me, but just couldn't stand me because of X, Y, and Z. And to me, that's what love was. Being with someone who loved me but didn't like me, even despised me. And my job was to try everything to make my obviously defective self good enough to finally make them happy and stop mistreating me. Spoiler alert, that never works with these people, like your wife. Their target is never good enough, because that's the game. Love doesn't justify psychologically destroying your child in a way that no therapist may ever be able to fix. Her love is pretty worthless in my view. It even creates a type of confusion that is extremely damaging. For anyone reading this and stuck in a relationship right now where someone is telling you they love you but don't like you, don't keep subjecting yourself to such treatment and hope to be good enough one day. Stick your middle fingers up and walk away immediately if you ever hear that phrase. Only accept relationships with people who like, respect, and value you naturally for the person that you are. Don't accept less from people, friends, family, partners. Your wife absolutely needs therapy. It sounds like she's in a very toxic place and taking out her frustration on your son. If she isn't willing to get the help she needs, you need to protect your son and leave. He is the innocent one in all this, and even if he's not showing it yet, this could create all kinds of trauma for him feeling that kind of rejection. That's my main concern too. I don't want this impacting him in a negative way. and can't play peacemaker every time she gets mad at him over any little thing, or just doesn't interact with him as much. All this time, I had hoped things would improve, and sadly that hasn't been the case. And now for the update. Well, it's been a hard few days, but it happened. Didn't want it to, but it needed to. I took my son out of there. Trying to talk with my wife about this a couple days after posting this got us nowhere. Even if therapy wasn't going to be the miracle that makes her want to be a mother to our son, I told her it wouldn't hurt to have somewhere to talk about her feelings. Get to the core of why she feels this way. But if maybe there's a way to work on it so that it wouldn't have a deep impact on how she is with him. She refused. And I asked her, does she ever think it will get better? As in, does my wife believe she could see herself caring for him and being what he needs at all in the future? The answer wasn't going to determine if I left or not, but that's something I just wanted to know for myself. She said no. When I told her that it's not going to work out between us because his well-being comes first, she begged me to stay. All these promises of not treating him negatively and putting on a face for him, but still will not do therapy at all because she doesn't need help. Then all of a sudden, she gets angry and told me to get out that if I only just want to be with my son. It was heartbreaking. We ended up leaving since she didn't want to leave the apartment. He was still half asleep when we left, so all I've told him so far is we're just taking a short vacation. He believes it since we're staying at a hotel for now, but he does keep asking about her. I'm trying my best to keep it together for him, but my heart's still broken though. I hate that it had to end like this. But many of you were right, and I know this too. He had to come first, and this was already messing him up. I know it was the right choice. Feels like my life just came to a hard stop, and I'm just trying to get my bearings still. She hasn't contacted me since we left. My family's aware of what's happening though, so I'm glad to have their support. My sister offered to have my son spend a weekend with them so he could be with his cousins. Since he is not here right now, I decided to use some of my free time to type this up. Thank you for being the push I needed to do something. Deep down, I know it was what needed to be done. Guess just needed it to be said. Many of us grew up with parents who never should have had kids. It's amazing what you are doing for your son. You have changed the course of his life for the better. I wish you both all the best. I wish it didn't have to happen. That's life, I guess. But I needed to do better for him. He didn't deserve any of that. Thank you for making this choice. Often, the loving parent will remain because they are scared/think it's best. It's a heartbreaking choice, but it's the right one for everyone involved. Please don't forget that both you and your son will need therapy. Don't let yourself drag this with you for the years to come. You both deserve better. After having our son, his mother started getting really horrible, and we started to fight constantly. She finally admitted to me that she didn't want to be a mom and didn't want to be tied down into a relationship with me either. For context, I had broken up with her a couple of days before she found out she was pregnant, and she talked me back into our relationship and into keeping the baby. So her not wanting to be a mom or be in a relationship were news to me. Fast forward 12 years later, and we live on opposite sides of the country. Her with her new husband on the East Coast and me and my son on the West Coast. She calls him on FaceTime every night and comes to visit for a couple of weeks 2 or 3 times a year. It turned out to be the best thing for all of us. Her and I become friends, and she doesn't fight me on things related to our son. And she has a good relationship with our boy, gets to love her unconditionally from a distance, without all of her in-your-face negative complications. Years ago, when my family suddenly fell apart, I thought the world was ending. But now I realized it was the best thing for everyone, including my son. Stay strong, put your son first, don't talk bad about his mother, and have faith. Everything will work out in the end, I promise. Thank you. I'm so glad you guys were able to get to a better place. That's all I want for my son. This gives me some hope. Even if things don't change with her, I know it was the right move for my son. Appreciate you sharing this. You're doing the right thing. One day your boy will understand what you did for him, and a positive example you've set will shape him, the people he meets, the life he lives, and the lives of his children after him. Good luck, brother. This has been the hardest week of my life. Most nights, I've stayed up crying. Aside from my son, this is the only thing that truly brought a smile to my face. So thank you very much for your lovely comment. I've got tears in my eyes, but for a different reason now. Next story. I kicked my brother and his family out and cut them off after they called my son a retard. I'm a widow, but before my husband passed, we adopted a baby boy. Our son Jacob, 4 male, was diagnosed with ASD and global development delay last year. It was hard for me being a single mother, but my profession as a speech-language therapist helped a lot in dealing with my son's tantrums. He is nonverbal, so it takes a lot of patience and understanding. My brother Abe, 30 male, and his family, and 29 female, Sue 10 female, became homeless earlier this year. I have offered my home to them as I have an 8-bedroom house that I inherited from my husband's family. Everything seemed okay at home. Jacob goes to kindergarten 4 days a week, then on Fridays I go with him to therapy. My brother and his wife stay at home most of the time. They said they're looking for a job. It's been a while now, but I don't mind as I love my brother and I have more than enough to help them. The problem started when my niece keeps teasing Jacob. She would take his toys and iPad, ending in him throwing tantrums and being really upset. I've talked to my brother and aunt about it, and they said it's just a harmless play between cousins. What made me angry was when Sue entered Jacob's room. I've told her many times before that Jacob doesn't like anyone going to his room. She took my son's scoreboard, visual aid to help with communication, and played with it. I heard my son screaming and crying while banging his head on the wall. I told off Sue, and my brother and I got into an argument. I told him his daughter's picking on Jacob isn't acceptable, and that he needs to discipline his daughter. That's when my brother said that we wouldn't have been in this problem if I had returned that retard to the orphanage. I got so angry, told him to leave my house and I don't want to ever see him again. They left my house later that day, and I heard from a friend that they now live in a motel, emergency housing. I also stopped giving them money. Our parents said I should just forgive my brother and continue helping him as we are family, but I could never forgive what he said. Am I taking this too far? Now for the top comments. No, you are not. You should not forgive your brother at all. He isn't wrong here. If he wants forgiveness, he should be begging for you to forgive him. Exactly. Why isn't he trying to say sorry? Seriously, I can understand a slip of the tongue in the heat of the moment, but this sounds like a pattern of behavior that is only going to get worse if they can't figure out how to be responsible. You need to protect your son. Nobody else will, apparently. Your brother and his wife made choices in parenting that landed them in that hotel. They are homeless. A family member takes them in off the street, and they antagonize their host. They then torment the host's special needs child and insult him to his mother's face. This isn't very smart behavior in itself. Your parents are pressuring you to cave into this mistreatment because then the brother isn't their problem. It's the stupidest thing I've read in a long while. Biting the hand that feeds you doesn't even cover it. Wow. Last story is titled, My 24 female sister, 30, hid her pregnancy from me so that I could move into a house she could only afford if I was renting. Now that I want to move out, some friends are telling me I shouldn't as she can't afford to be on her own. I feel stuck. I moved in with my sister almost 4 years ago. She took me in when I had nowhere else to go, and I had been forever grateful. I live with my sister, her husband, and 4 children. Although it's a lot of us, I've always had my own room, and I paid $600 for it. Unfortunately, they're not very financially stable, so my rent money goes a long way for them. The apartments we live in weren't great, but there wasn't much to complain about. Around April of this year, she suddenly told me the apartment management had told her the contract wasn't getting renewed, and that it ended in May. That was in less than a month, so I didn't have time to find roommates or a new place. I was stressing. The next day, though, she told me she had seen a house already. More space, big backyard, and that I could get my own bathroom plus a parking garage. My rent would be $800 now, but with all that included plus since the kids would have their own room, I could use the kitchen a lot more. I said yes, as it's not like I had any other options. Fast forward to now. That was all a lie. I pay $800, which is almost my whole check, and my bathroom is everyone's bathroom. She has a bathroom in her room, but says she likes mine better as it has a tub and a bigger sink and space. She showers all the kids plus the dog there, and my bathroom is always dirty. The parking garage she took because they had 2 cars, and it's easier on them to use both garages. I've had it, and I want to move out. Then yesterday morning, I woke up to the kids telling me they have a new baby sister. I was confused, until my brother-in-law came into the kitchen and told me my sister had given birth to a baby girl and showed me pictures. My sister had been pregnant this whole time and didn't even tell me. She's a bit on the chunky side, so it wasn't noticeable at all. I also work all day and go to school, so I never noticed any pregnancy symptoms. I am so angry as I realize now that she tricked me into moving. She kept her pregnancy as a secret because she knew I wouldn't want to move with her. 5 kids now. 5 damn kids when they aren't financially stable. I want to move out, but I know without my $800, they can't afford a place. They'd have to find a place elsewhere and pay for something they can't afford. I feel stuck. I don't want to live here anymore. I come home tired every day from work to screaming children, and my sister constantly going off on the kids. Some of my friends have said it's not that big of a deal, and I should just stay since I'm rarely ever home. And I should stay since I know they can't afford anything without me. But I'm angry. $800 is so much money for a room. It's too much money for everything I put up with. And the fact that she hid her pregnancy and tricked me into moving here just for her own benefit is crazy. Who does that? Surprise, I've been pregnant this whole 9 months? She's an adult with a husband. She's not your responsibility. To hell with folks telling you to stay. It's easy to promote when they aren't living in it. Get out ASAP and never look back, as far as regret. Yes, they helped you out, but now it's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet. Get out in the world and not be a burden to her family. See what I did there? I've given you a few talking points when you break the news to her and your brother-in-law. Also a rebuttal to folks who want you to stay because they need your income. Move out and take care of yourself. You are not responsible for your sister or her children. She should not have had 5 kids if she and her husband can't provide for them. I agree that she tricked you and takes advantage of you by constantly using your bathroom and refusing to share the garage. For your own happiness, move out. It might strain or damage your relationship with her, but are you prepared to live like this forever just to appease her? It's going to be difficult no matter what you choose, but know that your chances of living your life happily are probably higher if you put yourself first. I wish you luck.
Update. Am I the a-hole for losing it and screaming at my girlfriend to get out of my house after what her stepbrother did? Original post. My girlfriend was over at my place 2 days ago. We're both 20. She has a stepbrother who's 23. Before this, I'd only met him a few times, and he seemed like a regular dude. She asked if it was okay for him to come over for a couple of hours, and I said why not. He said he would bring booze and pizza, and since my parents were away visiting relatives for the weekend, I figured we could hang out. I have a little sister who's 15. She stayed in her room the entire time. We were all a bit tipsy, and my girlfriend's stepbrother asked if he could use the bathroom. I pointed him to the one down the hall. My girlfriend and I were preoccupied and didn't realize how much time had passed until we heard raised voices upstairs. We immediately went to check what was going on and found my sister crying. Apparently, instead of using the bathroom, he went upstairs. My sister's door was ajar, and he walked into her room. She was shocked and tried to stay calm, but he wouldn't leave. He started trying to chat her up. When she told him to get out, he closed the door behind him instead, which made her panic. She tried to get past him to open the door and he grabbed her, but she managed to open it. By the time I got upstairs, he had backed off. I was furious. There was a lot of yelling and accusations. We were all drunk except for my sister. After hearing her side, I confronted him. He was stuttering and trying to deflect. I'm pretty sure I threatened violence at some point. My girlfriend tried to be the mediator. She said I needed to calm down and couldn't fly off the handle based solely on my sister's word. But I was there. I saw my sister crying and panicking. I know her, and I know she wouldn't lie about something like this. Why would she? I told her stepbrother to get out of my house. My girlfriend kept saying we could sort this out and have a proper conversation, but I didn't see what there was to discuss. Then she said, "What if your sister is lying? Right in front of my sister?" I asked her what would make her think that, and she said, she's a kid and could be making it up for attention. That's when I lost it. I told her to get the heck out. She's been calling me ever since, but I ignored her. The dust has settled a bit. I went over everything again with my sister, and she promised me it happened exactly as she told me. She said she was scared he was going to essay her. This morning, my girlfriend texted me saying I shouldn't have raised my voice and that I scared her. I thought about apologizing, but she still hasn't said a word about apologizing to my sister or addressing her stepbrother's actions. When I asked about him, her response was that there's no hard proof. He ended up doing nothing and I should drop it. She claims she'll deal with him. I don't know if I'm the a-hole for how I handled this. Maybe if cooler heads had prevailed, the silent treatment wouldn't have happened, and we could have talked things through. I love her and don't want this to be the end, but I need advice on what to do moving forward. Now for the top comments. I'm sorry, but your girlfriend is just as trashy as her freaking pedo brother. Yep, she's just as gross as that predator for defending him. Not the a-hole. Protect your sister. And maybe have a big long talk with girlfriend. If she doesn't understand, then reevaluate your relationship. I'm definitely not losing sleep over the way I treated a stepbrother. I think I should have done worse and could have done worse. But I just wanted him out of the house. I'm mad because, over these 2 days, all her texts have been about how she felt and how I could have handled this better. She keeps saying she's never seen this side of me. Which is all true, but when I messaged her back to ask about her brother, her response was effectively, drop it. I can't believe she's being so callous about this. Hey girlfriend, this isn't about you and your feelings. Your adult, drunk stepbrother went into the bedroom of my underage teenage sister, shut the door behind him, and would not leave. The best thing I could do was make him leave. Rather than being appalled and apologetic, you had the audacity to question whether my sister was being honest, right in front of her, at which point I lost my temper. How could you accuse her of lying while seeing how upset she was? Even if you had doubts, that wasn't even vaguely the time or place. Since this happened, the only person you've cared about is yourself. You want an apology for my being angry and shouting, but not once have you apologized or even asked about my sister. Again, this isn't about you. And I don't think this is going to work out since I want to protect my underage sister, and you want to protect your feelings and your potential predator of a stepbrother. Am I sorry I raised my voice at you? Yes, but if ever a situation warranted it, it was this one. And no, you've never seen me like this because I've never been in a position where a grown man shut himself in my sister's bedroom and made her afraid she was going to be SA'd. Now we're done, and there's nothing left to say. That's what I said to her. She's a shitbag, and I'd bet he's done this crap before. Now for the update. First off, thanks to everyone who commented on my previous post. I tried to read as many comments as I could, and I got some great advice. My girlfriend asked me yesterday if we could talk in person. I agreed, and we met at a public park. She showed up already looking on the verge of tears. User Buttered Crumpet09, your comment was spot on. I basically said it word for word to her. Lol. She let me speak and was silent for a long time, before she said she was sorry for the way she had reacted. She told me she had been drunk, panicked, and hadn't been thinking clearly, trying to stop it from becoming a fight. We discussed her stepbrother. She told me he has a weird streak and acts oddly sometimes. She said he genuinely could have made a mistake and didn't mean any harm. I asked why he went upstairs in the first place and why he shut himself in with my sister after realizing he was in the wrong room. No answer. I asked how she could be so sure he had no perverted intentions. Again, no answer. Some of you suggested that the stepbrother might have a history or even done something to her. I didn't outright say it, but I was implying it. I kept asking, what if he had gone further? What if he's assaulted someone before and you don't know about it? I asked if there had been incidents like this before, and how she could possibly downplay what happened. She didn't respond. By that point, she was too choked up to speak properly, so I don't think she could have answered even if she wanted to. Anyway, I wasn't there to listen to excuses or justifications, and I told her that. She asked me if we were over, and I said the only way we could move forward was if she apologized to my little sister and then cut all contact with her stepbrother. I don't see a scenario where my sister feels comfortable around him again. She told me she didn't want to lose me, but she couldn't do what I asked. So I told her yes, we're done. My parents came back this morning. Like I said, they had been out of town visiting relatives. I hadn't told them about this over the phone. I just said an incident had happened and I would explain when they got back. My sister asked me to speak to them on her behalf, so I told them everything. My dad gave me a lot of grief, rightfully so. He says he wants to speak to my ex's parents about this and let them know what their son did. The police here are about as useful as tits on a bull, and we discussed it, and we're going to file a report, auto de noticia, anyway. I highly doubt it will go anywhere, but at least it will be on record. My sister is doing better. She was really shaken up and asked if she could sleep in my parents' room or mine for a bit. We'll probably arrange a therapy or counseling session for her and let her decide if she wants to continue. I'm going to take her bowling and then get food, just the two of us, so I can also apologize. I feel upset and guilty, honestly. I trusted my ex, and my naivety put my little sister in danger. I've always thought I was a responsible person, and this happening when I was supposed to be in charge is messing me up. I'm mad at myself, not gonna lie, but we move on. My favorite comments to read were the ones telling me what to do to the stepbrother. I don't ever want to see his face again, but in case I do, someone let me know if you have a wood chipper lying around. Thanks again, everybody. Edit? People have asked if I can run a background check or something. I don't think it's legal for a civilian to do that in my country, Portugal, and I don't know if I can request one, but I'll see. Also, to everybody commenting about underage drinking, I was so confused. That's not a problem here, lol. I won't be incriminating myself for anything by filing a report, so don't worry. I was waiting for this update. Good on you, mate. I still think the creep did something to your ex, which is why she kept deflecting and answering vaguely, saying he acts odd sometimes. Even if he did, it's not your responsibility now though. Your poor baby sister. Hopefully she heals quickly from this. Most people seem to think so. I will say my ex's mother has been with her stepdad for nearly 6 years. She never liked discussing her family and had only recently introduced me to all of them. She never gave any indication of a bad relationship between her and her stepdad/brother. I would have never guessed in a million years if abuse or assault was happening. I hope that's not the case, because that would be seriously messed up. Personally, I don't think it did her something such as abuse or assault, but something more insidious, like grooming. That would explain why she's so vague about him. She told me he genuinely could have made a mistake and didn't mean any harm. Ah yes, because going into a 15-year-old's room, stopping them exiting, and closing the door is totally a mistake, and totally harmless actions. Your ex better not complain. Say he made a mistake and didn't mean any harm if/when he does it again to another 15-year-old, and their brother ends up shooting him. That's what is so scary about it. Opie directed him to the downstairs bathroom and went upstairs anyway, while the ex-girlfriend distracted Opie. Anyone with any manners would wait a bit if someone is in a bathroom to give them time for their business. I shudder to think what would have happened if the stepbrother had managed to get the sister to be quiet or get a hand over her mouth. I have trouble believing the ex-girlfriend wasn't in on it. Last story. Am I the a-hole for saying my brother shouldn't have brought his pregnant girlfriend to my wedding and for refusing to let her be in my wedding photos? I got married last weekend, and I'm still so angry at what my brother did. He took all the attention away from me and my husband. Normally, I don't feel a need to be the center of attention, but this was my freaking wedding day. I feel like it's all anyone was talking about during the wedding, and now it's the main thing anyone remembers from the entire event. It was a destination wedding within the US, so nothing too crazy. We kept a guest list to our families, immediate and extended, as well as our closest friends. My parents paid for our immediate family to arrive about 5 days ahead of time. So it was my parents, my sister, and me initially, with my brother arriving a few days later. We knew my brother was bringing a date, no big deal. He said he was just bringing a girl from school. He didn't even call her his girlfriend officially. My parents showed up at the airport to pick my brother up, and there he was, hand in hand with an obviously pregnant girl that none of us had ever met. My parents were understandably taken aback. My brother greeted them like everything was normal, according to my mom, and my parents didn't know what to say. Then he just said, "Surprise!" My poor mom almost fainted, and my dad allegedly yelled out, "What the heck have you done?" He introduced us to this girl, but didn't clarify if she was his girlfriend or provide much information at all. It was very weird. It was obvious she was uncomfortable. She said she wasn't feeling well and needed to go lay down after the flight. So at dinner, it was just our family as she rested. We awkwardly sat around a table eating, barely saying a word. Finally, my mom asked brother's name. "Is that your baby?" By then, we all assumed it was, but my mom needed confirmation. The lack of explanation or details from him was just odd. He admitted it's technically not his baby, but he's in love with her and intends to be a father to the baby anyway. The actual father isn't involved and doesn't want to be, and if they get married, he can adopt the baby and be the legal father. She's living with him and none of us knew this either. He's been her main support person throughout the pregnancy. She's 28 weeks, well, 29 now since this was over a week ago. This was worse than what we had all assumed. He is so in love with her that he's willing to take on the responsibility of her child and marry her, yet we'd never even heard of her. He said he'd mentioned her quite a few times. Well, maybe he'd mentioned her name in passing, not to me, maybe to my parents, but never said she was his girlfriend or pregnant. None of us understood. He's 21, about to graduate college, planning to enter law school, and he's an attractive guy. Why would he do this? My parents, especially my mom, were stressed out about it all weekend long, throughout my entire wedding weekend. It was like my wedding became an afterthought. All my parents could talk about was how to make my brother change his mind about this girl. Then when the wedding photographer was taking family pictures, he wanted her in them. That was really the breaking point for me. She isn't family. None of us knew about their relationship, and we'd met her only 2 days prior. She shouldn't be in our official family pictures for my wedding. It's like, forget the bride and groom. Look at this random, heavily pregnant woman hitching herself to my brother. No, I told him no. I refused to let her be in the photos. My mom made me allow her to be in one picture, but said we don't have to buy that one or display it anywhere. It just made my blood boil. Anyway, I don't think he should have brought her. There was no reason to bring her to my wedding, especially without warning. I mean, it's all my side of the family you could talk about, and he was hesitant to even correct them about it not being his baby. He said that's because it was awkward for her to have to explain the full scenario to everyone, so he just let people think what they wanted. Because he wouldn't say anything, everyone was gossiping and wondering about it the whole time. I'm posting this because I'm upset that several friends, and even my own mom, are telling me I'm overreacting and just need to accept it. When I told a group of my coworkers about it after the fact, they weren't at the wedding. They agreed with me and thought what my brother did was absolutely insane and rude. Now for the comments. I think he knew in a wedding setting that attention would be divided. Your wedding was his meat shield. Interesting take, and something I hadn't thought of. He was purposely trying to take attention away from me at my wedding. He just wanted some of the attention taken off of him and his poor decisions? Still selfish. Yeah, your feelings are valid, and you haven't overreacted or anything. Not the a-hole. What he did was an a-hole move, though he probably didn't think it through enough to realize all the implications of his actions. He absolutely shouldn't have dropped that bomb at your wedding, or any wedding. I don't think he did it to be malicious. I don't think he thought about what he was doing to me. He also hasn't apologized though. If after being told something you did was rude and hurtful, at least own up to it. He knew exactly what he was doing. Such an a-hole move on his part. What did he think would happen? He couldn't let you have the attention on your wedding day? Is he that spoiled? Not the a-hole. He's the youngest child. He definitely gets away with more than my sister and I ever could. Anything he does usually gets forgiven.
Update. Am I the a-hole for kicking out my mother-in-law in the middle of the night? Original story. Some background. I, 32 male, and my wife, 25 female, have been together for 5 years and married for 3 and are expecting our son right now. We have our ups and downs. When we first got together, because I was fresh out of a horrible relationship and I was her first boyfriend. But I had always noticed that she was really demeaning about herself, and she was always really disappointed in herself. And this was just 6 months into our relationship, and it hurt to see her like that since she's an amazing woman. I convinced her to go to therapy for her, and we would do couple therapy because I did really love her in a short amount of time. And during therapy, I learned that her parents were narcissists who only loved her brother, their golden child. And when she relayed the mistreatment she faced, I honestly cried. And that whole experience made us the strong couple we are today, and the strong woman she is today. Back to present. My mother-in-law and father-in-law have gotten a little better over the years, which is why we are at low contact from our no contact position. My mother-in-law came to visit us. They live overseas, since my wife is pregnant. And it has been only a week and my wife's mood is completely dimmed. This happened at night when we were sleeping. My wife went to get some juice since she was craving it while I went to the washroom, and came back to see glass on the floor and my mother-in-law shouting at my wife. I couldn't handle my anger and shouted at her to get out, and told her if she didn't, I was gonna call the police. So she begrudgingly got out of the house. I calmed my wife down, and she told me mother-in-law had gotten mad at her because she wanted to drink apple juice because it's bad for the baby, and how she doesn't deserve to have a baby if she wanted to kill it. I'm now getting calls from her family saying I'm an a-hole because I kicked her out. And I even got a call from my parents saying it was an a-hole move, and I could have let her stay the night. I understand I might be the a-hole because I kicked her out in the middle of the night, but at that moment, looking at my wife shaking, it was the best option. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Edit. For people asking me about what kind of apple juice my wife was drinking in the messages, she was drinking natural apple juice, which she makes herself from fresh apples, not the one from the market. And now for the top comments before reading the update. So much not the a-hole. Go back to no contact, unless you want this kind of behavior around your baby. I agree wholeheartedly. OP's in-laws have not proven capable of introspection, so at the very least, it's time for at least absolute minimal contact. Put them on an info diet. Be a grey rock. Establish firmer boundaries now. Not the a-hole. Your in-laws are toxic people. I'm proud of you for protecting your wife from their garbage. They don't deserve a place in your family's life. Thank you. For a second, I did really believe that they were getting better and not being toxic. But that was just a lie, I guess. The only way mother-in-law's behavior that night is only even 10% okay is if your wife was drinking an entire huge bottle of straight whiskey. Apple juice is perfectly fine for an expecting mother. Not the a-hole. It sounds like your mother-in-law really only came over to control your wife and what she does during her pregnancy. If she didn't want to get kicked out, she should have acted like, oh, I don't know, a respectable human being? Not the a-hole. Who says that to a pregnant woman? Over juice? She's lucky you didn't tell her to go screw herself. And now for the update. Thank you to everyone who responded to my post, and thank you to everyone who voted not the a-hole, because I was really conflicted for a few days after the incident. And I also agree that I could have controlled my anger better. A lot has happened since I posted. Me and my wife went to therapy, where she told me the reason she accepted her mother's request to come was because she saw how her mom treated her brother's kids. So she wanted that for our son too, and she really did believe that her mother had changed for the better. But as explained by our therapist, that some narcissists refuse to change. My wife and I have written one letter and sent it to every one of her family member who had told us we were in the wrong, which basically said that her mother never cared for her and never would, and we didn't want that around our children. Then my wife wrote about several instances where she was subjected to emotional abuse, and even though everyone knew, no one did anything except for her grandma, her father's mother. She said she's tired of always being the bigger person, but now she would be selfish for herself and our child. And if anyone disagrees, they're welcome to cut contact, as she wouldn't miss people like that in her life. Something which shocked both of us was when her father called and asked what happened, and she narrated everything. Her father, being the typical narcissist, tried to gaslight, but with my support and her therapy, she put her foot down and asked her father if he had ever cared about her, because it never felt like they did. She narrated every instance from her childhood to her adulthood where she was subjected to emotional abuse, and how her brother always came before her. Her dad was silent throughout the call. And in the end, all my wife said that for her currently, she doesn't have parents, and hung up. By the end, all my wife did was cry, and I cried with her. I also called my parents, asking how they could not take my side knowing the history because they really love my wife, which is why it was hard listening I'm in the wrong. And they told me that it was because her mother had called them in hysterics, and told I was physical with her. I was not. After learning the truth from me, they came over to apologize, and my mother held my wife. I am an only child, so I and my wife are everything to them. I would like to point out that we're in the metropolitan area, and there are plenty of hotels, so I wasn't worried about my mother-in-law finding a hotel. She's loaded. Money isn't an issue. For now, we are just waiting for the little one to be born, and my wife is much happier and free from her toxic family. Great to hear that things are resolving the way they likely should. I hope your parents never side against you like that again. They had no reason to believe mother-in-law's horrible account that their own son was an abuser. That part is the biggest betrayal for me out of all of this, as wife's parents are already known narcissists. Yeah, that concerned me how all it took was one hysterical call, and his parents instantly believed her despite knowing about her and her past. While that response definitely gets a side-eye, it's actually not that uncommon. A lot of people who don't have experience with toxic people have a really vague and inaccurate idea of what that behavior looks like. Even if they understand consciously mother-in-law's an a-hole and has been very horrible in the past, they don't really get how manipulative they can be, or how casually/easily they lie. So the parents receive a phone call in the middle of the night from a hysterical mother-in-law claiming Opie got physical. Even though they've been warned, they instinctively believe it because they can't wrap their heads around someone who can turn hysterical crying on and off like a tap, or why someone would lie about something that extreme and easily disproved. Hopefully they're quick learners and appropriately apologetic, but it's worth remembering that people like the mother-in-law use those kinds of manipulative tactics because they're super effective at short-circuiting people's logical defenses and getting them on their side. This almost makes me glad I have the experience I do with narcs and their tactics, but I hate that anyone should have to deal with said narcs and tactics in the first place. Good on both of you for sticking to your guns and getting all this out in the open. Narcissists thrive on partial information. By sharing this with everyone in your extended family, it puts the mom in the spotlight where it will be a lot harder to get away with it. Congrats on making it through. I had a mother like that. I left home and went no contact when I was 17. It took me until I was 30 to make that stick. The longing for a loving parent is strong. Between those years, I let my mother back in 3 to 4 times. I couldn't give up on her. The first time, it took about 3 months for me to shut her out again. The last time, it took about an hour. As I got healthier mentally, it was easier to see the inappropriate behavior and shut it down. My mother had some epic meltdowns. So you aren't finished yet. Be vigilant. Be supportive. Don't expect perfection from your wife. She will falter, but expect her to handle things better each time. She will get there. And tell your wife a week is impressive. She snapped out of it faster than most. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister out of my home after she told me it was karma that I can't have kids? I, female 32, have been trying to get pregnant for 7 years now and have been unsuccessful. Diagnosed with PCOS later in life, I've had 5 miscarriages that have taken a massive toll on my physical and mental health. It has left me feeling like a massive failure as my partner, male 36, desperately wants children, and I'm unable to give him this. He never makes me feel badly about it, but I know he's upset. His parents are in ill health, and they want grandchildren more than anything. Recently, I had a massive argument with my sister, female 34, after my last miscarriage. I was upset and asking her why this kept happening to me. She shrugged and said it was probably to do with the abortion I had when I was 19. Honestly, I was gobsmacked at how nonchalant she sounded. She knew there had been health reasons behind it and had been supportive at the time. My health has been so poor that I needed an operation and had spent months recovering. Also, she knows how guilty I felt that I was unable to carry it to full term. I asked her what she had meant, and she said that our decisions always come back to haunt us, and that I needed to understand that I'd brought it on myself. That some people just weren't meant to have children, and it was God's way of telling us to stop. She wasn't being mean, just blunt, but my hormones were all over the place, and I ended up kicking her out of my house and telling her not to contact me again. Soon after, I got loads of phone calls from my other sister, mom and dad, and even my sister's husband, basically saying I had overreacted and was being a nahal, that I had to make things right and apologized. I refused and haven't spoken to any of them since. My partner doesn't want her back in our house anytime soon after what she said. Am I the a-hole for agreeing with him over my family? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You don't ever say something like that to someone. If she wasn't on the lease or paying rent at all, you have every right to kick her out. She's an adult. She can figure out her own living situation without having to room with people she thinks so lowly of. By the way, I'm so sorry you're having difficulties. I wish you all the best in the future for a large, happy family. If she wasn't on the lease or paying rent at all, you have every right to kick her out. That's the thing. I don't think the sister was even living with Opie at all. The vibe I got from this is that she was merely visiting, especially because sister's husband was also mentioned. All this hullabaloo from the family over making her leave a house she was visiting. I couldn't tell if it meant a roommate or guest situation and didn't want to assume, but her not being on a lease covers both bases. Person on the lease can kick out whoever they want if she's just a guest. Either way, she is a massive and manipulative a-hole who probably told a way different story to the family to act like she didn't say something completely atrocious to warrant getting the boot in the first place. Not an a-hole times 1,000. She is evil and completely lacking empathy towards you. Don't apologize. Don't take anything back and keep her out and anyone who takes her side. Our decisions always come back to haunt us, and that I needed to understand that I'd brought it on myself. That some people just weren't meant to have children. I think Opie needs to tell her family that our decisions always come back to haunt us, and that sister needs to understand that she's brought this on herself. Some people just weren't meant to be allowed in Opie's house. OMG, this is absolutely perfect. What kind of deranged monster is this sister? And she has a damn cheek to bring God into it too, which tells me she is one of those pseudo-Christian a-holes. Well, she may not be allowed to back in Opie's house, but I'm sure she will be welcomed to hell with open arms. Not a hole. A miscarriage is not something you should try and guilt a woman about. That's messed up. She was out of line. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not helping my brother get his kids into the same school as my son? My brother, 34 male, and I, 29 female, are not close. We see each other once or twice a year at most, despite living 30 minutes from each other. We both have kids the same age. My older son is the same age as his daughter. So back when my husband and I had our oldest, we talked about where we wanted him to go to school. Option A was the school we were zoned to at the time and it was okay, but with plenty of people who hated it. Option B was not super popular at the time. It was seen as a less than perfect choice by most for being less bothered with grades, according to several reviews. But for us, it was perfect. They had great teacher reviews from parents of kids going there. Kids adored it, and their policies were ones we really liked. So we made the choice to move to get into the zone for School B. Once our son started school, we had no regrets. Back then, my brother thought we were dumb and talked crap about the school choices. I remember seeing him that Christmas and him saying it was lazy parenting to not consider grades over everything else. Right now, he is eating his words, and it's the most we've talked in probably 20 years if I'm being honest. He reached out back in January to say how his kids hated school, and how he and his wife were having a hard time with teachers and things like that. He mentioned trying to get the kids into the same school my son was going to. There was a layer of aggression in everything. Like, screw you for having it better. He started texting and telling me this stuff a lot. And then in April, he told me that he got rejected because of the district, and ranted a bit about how much we sucked, etc., to the point where I hung up on him. It was after that point he asked me if he could use my address to enroll the kids there. I told him I would need to think about it. My husband and I discussed it, and we said no. Our reasons were neither of us wanted to deal with seeing and hearing more from him. Because while everything is emailed, we also get regular snail mail for certain things too throughout the year, and that would require more contact than neither of us wanted with him. I told him it wouldn't work for us, and when he asked why, I told him we have never been good, and we don't need to keep the conflict up by staying in touch more. My brother is pissed and has been pissed for months. I had to block him in WhatsApp, where he was texting and calling me, and I ended up leaving our family group chats because he was airing his stuff there. He called me Nehal, said I was selfish, that I should put the kids first. And at first, everyone was more on my side, but now others seem to think it wouldn't hurt and that putting the kids first should be the priority of a non-a-hole. So now I ask, am I the a-hole? Not an a-hole. Depending where you are, it's a crime to say you live at a place so you can enroll your kids in a better school. Even if it was legal, you don't owe him anything. Opie, not only it is illegal, but your kid is registered in that school at that address. It seems pretty inevitable that the school will eventually put 2 and 2 together, and then you'll be open to possible prosecution. Possibly your kid being kicked out of the school. That's what I'd tell him and family. Not the a-hole. I was thinking this as I wrote my comment above. Given the OP is a woman and her kids might have a different last name than her brother's kids, they would almost undoubtedly question why 2 sets of kids with different last names reside at the same address. Not the a-hole. It's true that kids should be primarily the concern for parents and family, but your brother and his condescending and horrible behavior is the roadblock here, not you and your decision to limit contact with him. Also, if this is public school in the US, this may be residency fraud. I don't know what penalties might be for parties involved, but it's a risk that you really shouldn't have to take. Your brother's kids have options besides making you commit fraud. He can find another school or he could move into another district. Could also be less of an a-hole and work on being a caring and supportive family member. There was a residency fraud case locally a while back, and the parents ended up on the hook for the cost of schooling. I can't remember the exact number, but it was thousands of dollars.